laminate. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Somebody
What is that? You got to tell us what that is now. Like, what was that?
Somebody was trying to call me, and it was about to ring and make a bunch of noise. So I started like hitting this to hang up. And as I did, it started making that noise, and I looked down, and apparently I was doing something that calls like the authorities, emergency SOS.
Oh, wow.
So then I'm like, how do I stop that? Anyway, I'll edit this out or leave it in. But I've
had it come up a few times, especially here in the past couple of weeks, with people that have questions about renting, where the market's at. And I know currently what's out on the market, price points. If you're currently renting with these interest rates where they're currently at, tell me I'm crazy if you shouldn't at least be considering on buying at this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you got it right. I mean, rates are super low. They're the lowest they've been in a very long time. Another reason why you shouldn't rent, so it's rent's expensive, but with rates as low as they are, maybe you didn't qualify a few months back. You can qualify for a little bit more now, but it's definitely a good time to take advantage of rates. I mean, you're going to borrow money for very little. Like you said, Mo, might as well at least try. At least call a lender, try to see what you qualify for, see what your payments are going to look like. But absolutely take advantage of rates. There's still a lot of homes. There's still a lot of ways that you can get into a mortgage today and own a home versus renting a home, which from what I understand is expensive, right? Renting in Jacksonville is expensive.
Right.
I think so. And I'm just to kick around round numbers, Vince, just for someone to get a parameter on their, a range. A home, $225,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The principal, interest, taxes, insurance, the whole nine. What do you think that would be under 1,500?
Yeah, under 1,500. I mean, depending on the area, anywhere between 1,200 to 1,500, maybe 1,600, depending on the taxes. But I don't know what that gets you renting. Maybe Daniel, but if you were to spend $1,500 in rent, what does that get you? And let's say, I don't know, close to the town center. What does that get you?
I mean, you could rent a house in, close to the town center, probably in that range, but we're seeing it all the time where you could see a for rent sign in a neighborhood and look at what that monthly rent is, and then factor buying a home in that same neighborhood. And generally your monthly payments are going to be less expensive than what that cost is for the rent. So that's, pretty common that, I can almost throw a dart and hit somewhere on the map. And that's going to be the case in that neighborhood, 9 times out of 10, I think. Especially if you're looking at stuff like in the 300s and below, $300,000 purchase prices and below. So yeah, and then equity alone, it's, somebody who bought a house. I have somebody that I'm talking to right now where they bought a house a couple years ago and now they're looking to sell it, and they're standing to make a pretty good profit off of what they bought it for. And I think that's the thing that people lose sight of. Even if somebody's paying the same exact money for their monthly payment in a mortgage as they would to rent, that's one aspect. Even if it's the same payment, a couple years from now, the potential for having paid down some of that mortgage, having the house go up in value, and then having, this kind of a windfall of a net profit when they go to sell it. That's a big thing that I think, people kind of lose sight of a lot of times.
Yeah, no. And hey, going back to what you were saying, as far as the rent and a particular home being for rent and buying a home in that same neighborhood could be, less, I'm just thinking of an example. I'm talking to a lady who, she actually works in Brunswick, but lives in Nassau County, is renting a home, paying roughly $1,900, is buying the home that she lives in, right, from her landlord, and is going to be paying like $1,600. Mm-hmm. So she's saving, $300, a month. This is, she's in a community that's close to 95. It's very convenient to get to Georgia, Jacksonville, and so forth. So, rent in that particular neighborhood is really expensive. So, renters out there, they need to at least look at the opportunity of buying a home by giving us a call or reaching out to us on social media. And there's just so many benefits. But what other benefits are there for somebody to buy a home versus continuing to rent?
One thing I'll put out there is it being yours, period. Someone could be living in a house and maybe they have a 1-year lease, maybe they have a 2-year lease. And if you don't particularly like the idea of having to move every 1 to 2 years, having to pack up everything and move 1 to 2 years, or maybe you've been renting a home for, renewing your lease every year and you feel like, oh, I'm probably going to be here a long time. You don't know the owner's intentions. And even if they intend to rent it to you, they could have something happen where it's like, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I got to sell it. I have to sell it. I got to get out of it. And, and those changes, not to be able to know where you're going to be versus if you own the home, you can make all those decisions yourself. And then I had a customer one time who was looking for a rental property, and she had 2 dogs, which if you've ever rented a property, getting you're limiting the amount of available rentals to you when you have 1 dog, and then even more so when you have 2 dogs. And then she had a lot of particular tastes, like, oh, I want vinyl, or I want laminate. So I had somebody who's looking for a rental, and they had 2 dogs, which limits the amount of rentals available to them. And they wanted like hardwood floors and all these different things. So to find that available for them was very tough. And I said, well, have you ever thought about just buying a home? Because then even if if it's the right home, you could add the floors and you don't have to worry about whether they accept dogs and all these other things. And she had never thought about it. So she started talking to a lender, and she found out that her monthly payments purchasing in the neighborhoods that she was looking at was going to be less than what she was going to be paying renting in those same neighborhoods. And so it was a no-brainer. I helped her buy the house, and she wasn't even thinking about it. And I wasn't just trying to bait and switch. I'm trying to sell a house. It was like really in her best interest that like, this is a better thing to go ahead and buy a house versus renting a house.
Yeah. And Daniel, going along with what you just said. So you mentioned dogs, right? And renting, getting into a house.
By the way, police may be on their way to my house right now. I have no idea what's going to happen with this.
But look, I was just going to say, so you mentioned dogs, right? And people renting. Renting can be expensive, right? So typically they require first month's rent, then they require, a security deposit. If you have dogs, it's even more money. So a lot of times, you're going to spend, depending on when you rent, $3,000 to $4,000, getting into renting a property where you could take advantage of the Florida bond and get into a home with very little to no money out of pocket and get $10,000 from the state that, that can be used towards your down payment or closing cost. So it could be expensive to get into a house. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that, some people think that buying a house could be very expensive and it's going to, you need thousands of dollars saved. But no, with an FHA mortgage with as little as 3.5%, you could buy a home. There's still a lot of good down payment assistance programs out there. And then one question that a lot of people have asked me, and maybe Mo, you can answer this, but inventory, right? So let's say you're a first-time home buyer and you're looking at homes under 300,000. Are there homes, like roughly how many homes are out there within that price range? What would you say?
Yeah, I just did a quick search, like 225, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. There's almost 870 homes currently on the market.
Oh, wow.
Between 100 and 225. So obviously you can get some lower price ones. There's probably a lot more on the lower end that need a lot of work. But generally from 1 to 225, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just under 900 homes. But if you're even contemplating whether you should be buying, I think at least doing yourself a favor, making a phone call, finding out what your options are, at least know what's available to you. I don't know. I understand why people rent, but I have a hard time understanding why people just rent and not really being savvy enough to think of, hey, long-term, wow, I should have bought 10 years ago,
Yeah.
Just be mindful of it. That's all.
Hey, if one of you guys could bail me out, they're getting here right now. I'm going to jail. So.